Does God want a separation of church and state? Should Christians be voting biblical principles? Does it really matter who you vote for? Join Pastor Jerry Cook as he endeavors to answer these and many other questions over the next hour on Politics in the Pulpit. And now, Pastor Jerry Cook.
Good afternoon and welcome to our afternoon edition here of Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station. Somber day in a lot of ways because, as many of you have already heard, conservative Christian commentator Charlie Kirk, who was shot today at the University of Utah, has indeed succumbed to his wounds. Charlie Kirk died today, 31 years old. Probably one of the most influential conservative Christian commentators of the last 5 years. Very instrumental in aiding President Trump in winning key states, specifically those swing states that were absolutely essential in the 2024 campaign. And one of those states in particular where TPS-USA is in the state of Arizona. If you remember in 2020, Joe Biden just barely eked out an 11,000 vote win there, but that completely turned when Charlie Kirk's organization came in and started doing what they do, the political activism they do there, and signing up so many new voters in the state of Arizona, Pennsylvania, and a few other key states as well. I do know that this is going to spark a greater conversation about political rhetoric and what people can tolerate on either side of the political aisle. I'll just be honest with you. I don't rejoice in Charlie's passing, but I do see that his passing is going to have a positive conversation going forward, in that we are now going to analyze whether or not the rhetoric that has been spewed by one side of the political aisle that keeps saying that right-wing conservatives spew hate speech, where you have people like Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, and others being disinvited to campuses in the past because of their conservative leaning commentary, and are these students at many of these universities just not having the ability to be able to debate ideas and basically shutting these conversations down before they can even be had. I do think this is going to spark that kind of a conversation. But again, if you're just tuning in to Politics in the Pulpit today on your hometown station, Charlie Kirk, conservative Christian commentator, has indeed died at the age of 31. I'd encourage you to pray for his dear wife and two very, very young kids who will grow up without a father. Jen, who of course has been doing a great job for the last couple of hours now, breaking all this live news. Jen, what do you know, and what are your thoughts real quickly before we pivot here to our guest?
I think it's just, it makes me worried for everyone, for our children. Jerry, you have young children around the same age as my kids, that it's almost as if we feel like we're not allowed to have a different opinion. And that's what makes me the most upset about any of this. It's the idea that violence is the only answer because I don't like what you said. I don't like how you vote. I don't like your beliefs, whether they're religious or who you choose to date, how you choose to worship. It's really sad, and it's scary, and it makes me worried for what our kids will have to deal with down the line. I hope that what you're saying is true, that it will force a conversation, for lack of a better word, that this is not okay. This is, it's sickening, to say the least. I do, you see just even a small quote, it kind of makes me feel a little bit better. Our governor, Gavin Newsom, obviously called the shooting, quote, disgusting, vile, and reprehensible. In the United States of America, we must reject political violence in every form. And that's what I'm worried about, that won't come true.
And I appreciate the governor coming out and saying that as quickly as he did. And also, the governor had Charlie Kirk on his podcast earlier this year, where Governor Newsom made some news about it not being fair when trans guys were playing in women's sports and stuff like that. That kind of made news because Charlie kind of pushed that out of him a little bit in the conversation. So I do know this. I will say this before we pivot to our guest. I so vehemently disagree with our governor, but I know that our governor didn't dislike Charlie Kirk.
You would hope that at the heart of it, he is a human being. He has children himself. He is essentially on a different level, trying to do the same thing that Charlie's doing, just in a different capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we definitely have a lot to talk about today, but we're going to talk more about that at the top of the hour, right before we get to the 3 o'clock hour. But we do have an in-studio guest today, and I'm glad to have him here with me because my first time meeting him was just over the weekend at the California GOP in Anaheim this past weekend. Had the privilege myself to address a rather large crowd at the Salt and Light Council, where Dran Reese, who was our guest, of course, last Wednesday here on Politics in the Pulpit, and had a great response there that actually allowed some other opportunities to open up for me as well, so I was glad about that. But one of the highlights of the California GOP was actually getting to meet our guest in studio today, and that is Leo Zacky, who is running for governor of the state of California. Leo, good to have you here today.
Thanks for having me here.
Appreciate you driving in. And I understand that you're a Southern California resident. You're a California resident.
Yeah, born and raised, fourth generation, born here in Los Angeles, and this is home.
Yeah, absolutely. I know in light of all the news that we've got on our heart right now, I think it's important that we talk about something that's even more important. I think Charlie Kirk would want us to do this, which is we need to change the leadership here in the state of California.
No, we absolutely do. And, you know, I'm just as in shock as everybody else is right now. I mean, just walking over here from where I parked, you know, the news breaks that he's officially gone. And I mean, this is just it's so surreal. You know, I got bombarded with all these messages and videos and stuff, and when I saw the close-up video, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
there's no way to survive that one.
Yeah.
And by the way, I should just offer the caveat for folks that are, maybe scrolling through their Facebook or Instagrams right now.
It's graphic.
You may not want to necessarily watch that.
It's not like Kennedy bad, but there's blood.
Yeah, there's enough. And again, if we're talking about your main artery running through your neck, folks, when that gets shot, when that gets pierced with a knife, there's a lot of blood. And when I saw the video, just to kind of pivot off your point here, Leo, I'm a hunter and I have a lot of law enforcement in my congregation.
That's usually where you go. That's where you aim.
Yeah, the law enforcement that I spoke to said that it's very, very unlikely, even with the great, phenomenal medical care that he probably had swiftly, there's just no way for you to take that amount of blood loss and actually survive that. And I think one of the reasons why they probably hemmed and hawed about, talking about him passing was they probably want to get a hold of his wife and kids and probably break that news to them first.
Yeah, I can imagine that being the case. I mean, I've gotten the opportunity to meet Charlie several times, and I'm an active supporter of TPUSA and TP Action. I was just at the Student Action Summit in Tampa. I mean, I've gone to these private investor things that they host, so I mean, I've definitely been around Charlie. I've gotten to talk to him, and one-on-one and stuff like that. So it's just I'm sorry. I know we got a lot to talk about with this race, but I'm just so in shock over this. And the craziest thing though is Charlie's always put himself out there in these really dangerous positions. I mean, he's made himself, unfortunately quite a target like that. Especially in light of all the violence that's taking place on campuses around the country, these gun-free zones, and he's there under, a canopy with, a couple of security guys around him, and these seas of people that are so close, and there's no security, metal detector checkpoints or anything like that. It's outside in these open spaces, so he made himself. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying he put himself in a vulnerable position, and he's arguing with people that are so indoctrinated and so deranged, and we do have a mental health crisis in this country, and he's upsetting these mentally unstable people, and
you're talking about the people on the campus.
Anybody that we've all seen the videos. I watch his stuff all the time. I see it always on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Always watching his stuff. Because his responses are always so on point. They're so intelligent and articulate, and it totally shreds their their emotional based thought process, and they can't handle it, and they snap and they freak, and now somebody's just gone off the rails and went and decided to take the man's life.
One of the things that I'm a little astounded by, to be honest, because I've seen the broader video of the large crowd that was there.
Yes, the elevation one.
Exactly.
There's like this kid sitting up on like the edge of a wall or something.
And so if this shooter was, close range, as I was telling Jen and Andrew just a little bit earlier, they would have automatically swarmed that guy because he'd have been in the crowd. But this leads me to believe that this shooter was somewhere on the outskirts.
Have you seen the video? They had like some older white guy like on the
he
on the
looked
ground.
like Victor Davis Hanson. That guy. That's the video. That's the picture of the
That's
guy
the
that
guy
I got.
that-
but that's not the guy that actually that did the shooting.
Oh,
So the suspect currently is still at large.
really?
Yeah,
gosh.
unless Jen finds anything out during our time here in the next 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
As far as we know, the suspect is still at large, which tells me this thing was planned and plotted for.
Well, I mean, the people know, where his public speaking events are going to be next. The campus is set aside, these locations. It's all predetermined. I mean, unfortunately, this information is relatively easy to find out, but the whole point is that you're trying to draw a crowd and do your thing.
Yeah.
So it's one of those catch-22 situations. But
What does this say about conservatives talking out in the public and them being targeted for their, let's just say, conservative principles?
well, I mean, you always see this violence coming from the left, right? You don't see.
And again, we don't know yet what this guy is.
Well,
but it's possible he could be a leftist. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I guess we don't have the information, but I mean, I'm going to go ahead on a limb here, and doesn't represent you. I'm going to say it's someone from the left, but this violence is constantly coming from the left. You don't see conservatives or right-leaning people, taking shots at, AOC or Bernie Sanders, or
Rhetorical shots, just not literal shots.
Well, no, but I mean, you don't see this kind of violence coming from the right, and I'm sure the left will argue and say January 6th, where the only person who died was Ashley Babbitt.
Yeah.
And she was, on the conservative side, you could say.
Sure.
And I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just in shock with all this. It's heartbreaking because here's a guy who's he's been doing it. He's been educating the youth and empowering the youth and saying, hey, there is an alternative way, that you can actually have a good life, and that there is a good way of governance, and that there are good people out there, and you can find that in God, and God is here to help you, and he loves you, and he supports you no matter what. And, the decisions you make, you can always repent, and God will forgive you.
As I was saying to Jen at the top of the hour, I really do believe that it was Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA that delivered those key states for the president.
Because I went to these founder meetings that they hosted for like the high dollar donors, and his plan was, we got to raise $100 million, and we're going to target these 10 counties across these states here, and that's because he's like, look, regardless of whether you think the election was fair or not, if you hyperfixate on it, these 10 counties in the election, it was these 10 counties and about 200,000 votes that lost it, for Donald Trump. And so they made $100 million investment into that, and they did door knocking. They developed this whole program with, hiring people to go and be door knockers and this technology and everything, and it turned the tide. Mm-hmm. And obviously all his speaking and his TPUSA events and stuff like that.
And it helps also that he was young. I mean, he's 31 years old, and he has a very...
But he's a critical thinker.
He's a critical thinker.
He's well-educated.
Well-educated.
And that's the thing is that, what's going on, especially, and that's why he would go to these campuses, because that's where critical thinking really goes to die. That's where indoctrination... seriously, that's where indoctrination goes. And that's where it is. These kids aren't getting the free thinking, independent, critical thinking skills that they need. They're not getting it taught, and obviously in earlier, general education in high school and middle school and elementary school. They're just getting indoctrinated. And it's like, this is how it is, and you can't ask questions. And if you do, you're labeled a racist or a bigot or a transphobe or whatever, and that's the cancel culture, which he's always been very active in speaking out against, is cancel culture. And that cancel culture is what's been killing this country, and not just this country, but all around the world. I mean, it destroyed comedy. It's kind of making a comeback.
No, it is. In fact, some of my favorite comedians are like Don Rickles, George Carlin.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys are so on the edge.
Bill Hicks.
Yeah, exactly. But these guys,
Richard Pryor,
were, especially in the 70s, Richard Pryor, the 70s version of the Richard Pryor. But yeah, that's a rough comedy, but a lot of people can't handle it today. Like Don Rickles and George Carlin, they couldn't hack it today. But to go back to your point a little bit about the college campuses and the minds full of mush that are on our campuses today, all we hear now is, free Palestine and Israel is bad, and the conservatives are, they're the instigators of all this stuff. When you are fed a constant spoonful of this type of rhetoric by your professors, by your peers, you start to believe this stuff.
Well, because kids are indoctrinated nowadays to just be like, these people are the intelligent ones. I mean, look what happened with COVID, right? Trust the science. The science. Doctors know best. Scientists know best.
And now we're finding out St. Fauci wasn't so much a saint.
Oh, I mean, you could have seen what happened with the AIDS epidemic in the 80s and AZT, which he was a part of.
Which he spearheaded a lot of that,
And Freddie Mercury died, but Magic Johnson didn't. And the difference is Freddie Mercury kept taking the AZT, and Magic Johnson said, this makes me feel like crap, and didn't.
Yeah.
And look who's standing.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And that's for those of you out there that love Queen.
It's classic rock, man. I mean, it's classic rock.
That's real Bohemian Rhapsody of you. By the way, you are the champion, Leo, might I add.
I'm trying to be here for everybody. I mean, look, I'm in this.
Jen, give me a break, all right? Don't nod at me like that. Just because I know some of these songs.
Well, you and I are the same age, so
just listen. And if the joke goes down, you can just say another one bites the dust, right?
Oh, good.
There it go. I was waiting for that one.
That's pretty good.
Thank you very much.
I'm impressed.
I'm sorry, Leo. Jen's not running for governor, but you are.
No, it's okay.
Now, Leo, I wanted to pivot to you, but we're going to go to a break here in just a few minutes. But one of the things I believe, and I said this just a few minutes ago, Charlie Kirk would want us to continue doing what we're doing. And I believe that politics ran thick in his blood. And just a few months ago, he spoke to Gavin Newsom on Gavin's podcast. And I'm glad that Gavin came out with the statement that he just made here.
It's
about,
one of those
about
generic. It was a generic.
Oh, I'm sure
response.
It was generic.
Come on.
It was probably very generic, but I'm glad it came out as quickly as it did. But what I want to do is I want to talk about your campaign, Leo, because obviously you're one of those candidates that doesn't get all of the airplay that Steve Hilton gets. But I think it's important that we highlight Leo Zacky, Daniel Mercury, and some of these guys out there that are vying to get into what we would call the top tier, if you will. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how Leo Zacky is going to make California golden again.
Great again.
When great again? Well, we don't want to do... Yeah, exactly. That was a Steve Hilton thing, right?
Yeah, let's avoid that one.
Let's avoid that one. All right. Make California great again. When we come back here on your hometown station, we'll talk to Leo Zacky, who is running for governor of the state of California, when we return here on your hometown station. All right, we're back here with Politics in the Pulpit with your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, Pastor Jerry Cook. Obviously, most of you already know that the breaking news all over the country, in fact, the world, is that Christian conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, has died. He was assassinated today in the state of Utah at the University of Utah. As far as we know, and again, there's no breaking news on this particular point, but the suspect who did the assassination is not in custody. But if anybody knows anything different, just call into the station and let us know so we can break that news. But one of the things I know Charlie Kirk would want is for the show, politically speaking, to go on. And we have in studio with us today, and I'm pleased to have him with me. Here to my right is Leo Zacky. He's not just metaphorically to my right, but he's also politically to my right. But Leo Zacky, of course, you recognize that name because that is the Zacky farm name. Leo, tell us a little bit about the Zacky Farm brand until, of course, it ended up shutting down in 2019.
Yeah, my great-grandfather started it in 1928 here in Los Angeles, and my grandfather incorporated in 1955 after he came back from fighting in Korea because he said the future was in pre-packaging, and wow, was he right. And so he put everything up that he owned and bought a processing plant in South El Monte, and from there it just went gangbusters and opportunities came his way, and he leaped at them, and next thing you know, we were the largest privately owned employer in the state of California. We were vertically integrated here in California. Everything we did was in California. We milled our own grain, laid our own eggs, hatched our own birds, processed our own raised and processed our own birds, packaged them, had our own fleet of trucks, had our own facility. It was big. We have 4,000 employees. We're the largest organic turkey producer in the nation when we shut our doors, largest second chance employer in the state of California, and I got to be a part of that.
What shut down Zacky Farms, Leo?
I mean, it was just decades of just poor legislative decision-making up in Sacramento, and even things that came from Washington as well. I mean, the ethanol mandate under Obama in 2009, that made the price of corn jump by 450%, and that's what we predominantly fed our birds. It was 95% of our feed mix. Then you have the CARB, California Air Resources Board. It priced us out of it being affordable for us to own our own fleet of trucks, so we had to liquidate that and go to a leasing company, which is the next alternative, cheaper option, even though it was still more expensive than what we had. Obviously, fuel prices made things difficult. Utilities, water, power, skyrocketing, that didn't help. Permitting, like CEQA, inhibiting us from being able to expand our operations. And, of course, the minimum wage, 50% increase in 2016. I mean, and then when Gavin Newsom came in and he decided to go to war against Donald Trump, and Trump said, "All right, forget you, California. You're not getting the federal funding." That was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. And
so because you saw how regulation and overregulation basically strangled Zacky Farms.
Oh yeah, and I was a board member for the California Poultry Federation for a decade. I shadowed my grandmother from 15 to 18, and we'd go to D.C. and Sacramento and meet with all these elected officials. And then when I was 18, I officially became a board member, and I was a board member for 10 years. And so I'd go to these offices of senators and congressmen and state reps and state senators and meet with the USDA and the FDA and the EPA. And I'm telling you, I've been to their offices. These people don't care about you. They're really stupid. They're stupid, and they don't care about you or your business or your family, but they really love being wined and dined. And it was so disgusting. Well, we already made a deal with the other side, so we're going to vote with them on this one. But, because when we need them to vote with us on other things, they're going to vote with us. That's just how this thing works. And it's like, don't you care about these businesses? Don't you care about these people who are depending on these businesses to stay operational, to have a livelihood? I mean, look at all the businesses that have left the state.
Are you suggesting that the elected officials in this state don't have the courage of their convictions, Leo?
I mean, that would be an understatement.
I think I would concur with you on that. Leo Zacky, I want to ask you a few questions here regarding policy here in California. Obviously, this is a state that I love, a state that you love. Mm-hmm. I have no desire to leave California. AB 495 is being voted on tomorrow, which is something I'll say probably right towards the end of the show today. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, which, of course, is gas prices. I have a friend that just drove through the state of Georgia the other day, coming to Wyoming, and he told me that he found gas in Georgia for $1.89.
Yeah.
But gas averaging from Georgia all the way to Wyoming was about $2.15 to $2.35. We are paying on average $4.55 here in the state of California. There are some places in Los Angeles where you can find over $5 gas.
Yeah, at the end of my street, it's $5.55.
So tell me what Leo Zacky would do should you be elected governor when it comes to gas prices and production of gas here in the state of California.
Drill, baby, drill.
There it is.
I mean, look, it's really simple. We have so much oil here in California. In fact, at one point, California was responsible for 25% of the nation's oil. We have a huge, not only underground supply, but also offshore. I mean, you're in L.A. You ever drive down Pico Boulevard?
Yeah.
Okay, you know those tall, skinny buildings that are windowless?
Yeah.
Those are oil derricks. Beverly Hills High School had 2 oil rigs up until about a couple years ago. The Beverly Center is an active oil field. Signal Hill down in the Long Beach area, that's oil. We have a ton of oil here in California. We're just not utilizing it. We have refineries, and so we have to extract it here, and we have to refine it here, and we have to sell it here. because we're spending tons of money importing foreign oil into the state. And also, this 91 octane thing is a bunch of crap. It's not efficient. It's, in fact, in Europe, the standard offerings out there are 98 and 100 octane. Sometimes you'll find 95, but it's predominantly 98 and 100. You get a better fuel combustion with that. And I have found a gas station not far from where I live that sells 101 octane gasoline. I have a 22.5 gallon tank in my car. And when I fill it up with that, I can go to Fresno and back, which is 212 miles each direction for me. And I can still have gas to put around LA when I get back. But if I use 91, I have to stop somewhere before I head up the Grapevine again outside of Bakersfield and gas up. It's inefficient rather. And so we can create jobs here in California by refining the oil, because there's so many other jobs in industries that are a part of this, right? You have to actually have people go in and operate the wells and build the wells and cap the wells and do the salt water removal. And then there's the transport that's involved. And then there's the refining and then all the work that goes into that. And then all these other companies that machine and make the parts to do that. So it can create over 100,000 jobs here in California easily. And that oil revenue would be upwards of $80 billion annually.
So we could basically go from being the 6th largest economy in the United States.
Whatever they say fifth, the left says fourth. Others say
we could be like the first.
We're already the strongest, I think, in the country, but we could definitely jump position in a good way. Everything becomes cheaper and better with the abundance of the resources, but we're not utilizing them. That's just one of the resources I want to tap into to turn into a net positive revenue generator for the state, because right now we solely rely on taxation.
I just heard of a poll that suggested that Los Angeles just came in as the 2nd safest large city in the United States of America. I don't know if it was Babylon Bee or not, but but it looked like a legitimate poll of people suggesting that Los Angeles is the safest, one of the safest, largest cities in America. I live here. I don't dare go into Los Angeles proper because it's crime ridden.
I go down there.
I'm happy with Nathan Hochman. I love the fact that he's our DA, but what would Leo Zacky do when it comes to the crime situation here in the state of California?
Well, the best way to stop crime is to have a strong economy where people don't have to turn to criminality. And then the other component, too, is having good education. Look at our kids right now. They're reading at least 3 levels below grade level. So kind of hard to get a job when you're not educated and capable of doing that. And it also keeps businesses away. Like, what talent pool is there for them to draw on to actually employ people with? So it's about, one, actually having an environment that would stimulate business, that's friendly to business, that empowers people to be their own independent wealth generators. You do that by deregulating. You do that by lowering the business taxes. You do that by utilizing tax credits. That'll help bring Hollywood back, for example. That's one of the things I want to do tax credits for. But also streamlining the permitting process. I've been in the restaurant industry. I just actually, my family and I are selling our commercial property in Santa Monica. We used to own the property that Circle Bar was in. Legendary spot. Business couldn't make it. And we wanted to, tear down the building and build something new. But the permitting process was like pulling teeth. And we couldn't get the approvals that we wanted. And it's like, well, it's like either put $1 million in to bring a crappy building up to code and still deal with some of the, the underlying issues. Or get the permitting I want and spend twice that and triple my square footage in a brand new building without the problems. And I'm not getting the permit. I'm not tearing it down if I don't have the permit to build something back in its stead. So it was hemorrhaging capital. So we had to let it go, unfortunately. But I'd love to have a state website where people could go and interact with an AI, like a Grok or something like that, and go, hey, I want to open a restaurant. I want to build an addition to my home. I want to get a liquor license. I want to, start a retail shop, whatever, and it just gives you all, and the AI is just like, here, you have all these forms to fill out and you can do it electronically and submit it electronically. And then if you screw up anywhere, it tells you where you messed up and you can make those corrections and resubmit it. And then and when you're approved, it'll say, all right, you've been approved. The inspector will be there at this date, at this time. There you go. And it cuts a lot of lag time out of the picture, which is
the middleman,
and a lot of the cost and the fees. So that actually cuts away those financial barriers that so many in California don't have, they can't afford to break through that. So it really helps bring the middle class into play and grow the middle class, who then become not only wealth generators but job creators.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in here to Hometown Station, we're talking to Leo Zacky, who, of course, is running for governor here of the state of California. We're talking about some of his policy positions. He's talking a little bit about gas prices and production here in the state of California, as well as crime. Let's talk about the other elephant in the room, no pun intended here, because obviously that's our animal for the Republican Party, because obviously an elephant squishes a donkey. But anyway, fire mitigation and prevention. We're just coming off of month 9 now of the horrific Palisades fire and the Altadena fires. It's been as slow as molasses when it comes to our state government trying to figure out whether or not people can build back on their properties or not. And we know that Spencer Pratt is basically becoming a household name now because of just how slow they have been down there. But what would Leo Zacky do when it comes to fire mitigation and prevention here in the state of California?
Oh, I'm glad you asked this, because this is, again, another one of those issues that is so avoidable. See, the whole thing with California is that we take this reactionary approach to everything. I'm not just California, but I think all of our government in general. It's always reactionary. There's never proactive measures that are put into place. We have an invasive bark beetle here in California that is destroying our hardwood trees. And we're not eradicating it. So I want to eradicate the bark beetle by utilizing logging industry to go in and glean the forest, not clear cut, glean the forests. Okay. And while they do that, they're going to they're going to remove those dead trees and that underbrush, but we're going to utilize the prison population to help out with that. We're going to also, part of my homeless to home program is going to be having them help, do underbrush clearing. And so that's going to save us a lot of headache when it comes to these fires, eliminating that fuel source. The other thing we have to do is we have to use technology. And that means firefighting drones. Have remote firefighting drone stations scattered all throughout the state. And so when smoke is detected or fire is detected, they can just take off and zip over and extinguish it right away. And then if they need to come back, and they can recharge at that station and then go back and fight that, and put that out. So we can mitigate and squelch those flames before they burn out of control and cause crazy havoc. The other thing we have to do is we have to invest in CAL FIRE, and turning CAL FIRE into a modern firefighting force with all the tools and technology that we need. So proper funding for that and getting the proper equipment. I mean, when you see those DC-10s and all those other planes coming and dropping the Phos-Chek, those aren't all ours. All these other states and places, they give those to us to use with their people, but it comes at a cost. So there's another added fee to that. So if we're in a position where we have a very modern firefighting force and all these preventative measures in place, we don't have to fight our fires here. We can then go and send them out of state and go bring in money and revenue that way. So it's about, anything in business that you want to do. Like somebody has an idea for in business, you have to have a way of it being able to pay for itself. And so that's what all of my solutions also have built into it, is that there's ways to offset their expenditures and create and be able to have them being net revenue drivers. So that's what I'd like to do with that. Also having part of my water abundance project will have reservoirs scattered throughout the state so helicopters can recharge far easier.
You mean reservoirs with water?
Yes, yes. Well, that's why it's the water abundance project.
Very good. Here's another thing that I want to talk about. I have a 19-year-old son who's trying to make his way out in the secular world out there. I'm on my second home. My wife and I are on our second home. We bought our first home in 2008 when the economy took a nosedive, and then we bought our second home in 2016. Our home that we currently have is on an acre of property, and it was $599,000 in 2016. Right now, it's well over $1 million.
Nice.
Now, it is great for me.
Except the dollar's been devalued.
It has, but it's still great for me as a seller. However, my son can't really buy a home at the age of 19.
Well, I mean,
so I'd
love for people to be able to buy homes at the age of 19.
What would Leo Zacky do when it comes to the cost of living and affordability here in the Golden State?
I feel you, man. Look, my friends are getting married and having kids, and they can't afford to buy homes here either. And I'm a hockey player, so my goaltender has left. He's moved to Vegas. I have defensemen that have moved out of state, wing partners that have moved out of state. Nashville and Texas, and it's because, again, this goes back to the overregulation in the permitting process, which is stifling in many regards. And then you also have the crazy insurance policies that contractors have to take out. Like if they bring in like a specialist for one day to do something on a build, right, on a job site, they have to then go and pay for a insurance, on that individual, and that's cost prohibitive there. Then you have things like the Coastal Commission and CEQA, which constantly block and regulate how they can do and build and create. And like let's say they come out, the CEQA people come out and they're like, oh, we found these like nesting horned lizards or whatever, within a square mile of this area, you can't build here. It's like, come on, like at what point are you going to allow humans to actually inhabit and grow and create? I mean, like, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of land out there. Nothing said you can't capture these things and move them elsewhere if it's that important.
I always tell people, if you think there's no room in L.A., just drive between Victorville and Las Vegas. You see plenty of it.
I mean, 50% of the state's owned by the federal government. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of land out there.
A lot of Bureau of Land Management out there. We're coming to the top of the hour here, and got a couple more minutes. Leo Zacky, if somebody wanted to donate to your campaign, they wanted to volunteer to your campaign, they wanted to read up about Leo Zacky's campaign, where would they go?
I mean, got to go to leozacky.com. Donations are super important. There's a lot of metrics that the party cares about more than anything. I don't care what the dollar amount is. Like, you want to give me $5, like, I appreciate that. I need to have that out there more than anything. If you like what I hear, you like what I say, and you like what you hear, I'm the guy. Look, I'm the only one in the race that's fourth generation Californian, ag business background, and actually has solutions, not stories, for people out there. And I've thought about it. It's all detailed, easy to understand. So please go to leozacky.com. You can learn about me there. And then follow me on Instagram and X and all those other things at Leo S. Zacky. Instagram is my preferred platform. Don't ask me why. I just think it's easier to use. It's less toxic.
Leo Zacky, thanks for joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit. Hopefully we'll have you back.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. We'll be back here on your hometown station in just a few minutes. All right, we're back here for our final segment of Politics in the Pulpit. If you were just tuning in a little bit ago, we had Leo Zacky, who is running for California governor. Again, check him out on the web, Leo Zacky for governor, or Zacky for governor, if you will, and then, of course, on the other social media platforms as well, and give him a quick follow. Well, obviously, the breaking news today that could have been the entire show, but I don't think Charlie would have wanted it. And, of course, is that Charlie Kirk, Christian conservative commentator, founder of Turning Point USA, was assassinated. There's no other way to put it. He was assassinated. He succumbed to his injuries a little over an hour and a half ago. I saw the video. I'm not encouraging you folks to go out there and scroll social media to find it. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. If you do, please do not press it. It is graphic, and he got shot in the neck, folks, and so there's a lot of blood coming through there. Jen, you have any updates on whether or not the suspect has been identified and or taken into custody?
No, unfortunately, there's no new information, which to me is odd. You and I were talking about it a little bit off the air before your show started this afternoon, and considering how many people were there, certainly we live in the digital age. Everything is being recorded all around you. It's just strange. And your point, by the way, was that possibly, we obviously don't know, we don't have any facts around this, but that possibly the shooter would have been well off of the general area that you do see where Charlie was located, kind of underneath like a pop-up tent. Maybe the shooter was far enough away to where he or she was able to shoot and then escape.
Yeah.
They had someone, and I don't even want to say in custody. There was a video earlier this afternoon of an older gentleman who was detained and kind of being escorted away by a couple of different law enforcement officers. And his pants were around his ankles. He looked disheveled. He was shouting and yelling and kind of incoherent. But they have since said that he is not the suspect.
And also there was some conjecture about whether or not the shooter may have been associated with the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, if you will. None of that has been verified.
No, none of it.
Yeah. And whether he was a Mormon, a Christian, a Baptist, I don't care what. We just know this. He ought to be called out for what he has done.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is not the answer to this ongoing issue that we have as a country. This is unacceptable.
So real quickly here, Jen, I was just scrolling through Town Hall, one of my favorite conservative sites, and I was just wondering, well, Charlie's been dead now for about an hour, a little over an hour. I'm just wondering what kind of sentiment we're going to see on the House floor there in the federal government. I'm going to just read this to you. This is fresh off of a brand new article on Town Hall. Democrats are despicable people. That's how it starts. If there's anything that will obliterate their fake condolences over the death of Charlie Kirk today, look no further than this spectacle on the House floor. Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, commentator, host, and activist, was shot and killed at Utah Valley University in Orem today. He was 31. Speaker Mike Johnson wanted to hold a moment of silence for Kirk, which House Democrats shouted down. Representative Anna Paulina from Florida couldn't hold her tongue, shouting, "You blanking own this," at the Democrats. Of course, I can't tell you what the blanking was, but I think you can all probably guess what that is. It rhymes with mucking. But this is just ridiculous that we can't just have... Remember, we used to pray on the House floor, but then it became a moment of silence because we didn't want to offend everyone that didn't pray. But now we can't even hold a moment of silence. Now that is already too much. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago when the trans shooter shot up that Catholic school, there were Democratic representatives saying, hey, listen, stop with this praying stuff. MSNBC host Jen Psaki basically said, stop with the prayers. Maybe they're just being consistent here. But you would think, Jen, that maybe in our highest places of government in our land, like the House of Representatives, you would think that they could just have a moment of silence.
You would think. It just screams... To me, it sounds like somebody who can't even, and I don't have the right words, they're not mature enough, for lack of a better word.
Well,
they're not mature enough to understand.
I think mature is a good word.
Yeah, it's like you don't have the mental capacity to understand what we're talking about here and to give this person, whether or not you hate the guy, the moment that he deserves. He's a human being. He's a father. 2 young children, a fairly new wife, really. They were just married in the past, I think, 4 years. So to me, that still feels like a newlywed. His entire life ahead of him.
And he's definitely a lot younger than we are.
He certainly is, by a decade-ish.
Well, you're younger than me too, so that's a positive.
By a month or so.
But the fact of the matter is, here we have a conservative commentator that has definitely had a huge impact in a very short amount of time. I was talking to Leo Zacky earlier about the great Rush Limbaugh, who we lost to cancer in 2021. We had him for 30 years. You know, he was a staple, definitely a lightning rod in all those ways. And I felt a loss because I listened to him almost religiously every day, 9 o'clock to 12. And saw his TV show back in the 90s when he was still selling his neckties and stuff like that, which I didn't think was as great as his radio show, but still, you know, he had quite a media empire going on. And Kirk is in that vein. He had a media empire. There's just no doubt in such a short amount of time he was able to do all these things and have the president's ear. But now he's dead at the age of 31. When we return on Politics in the Pulpit next week, Lord willing, we'll have some much better news. But I promise you this. Some wacky Democrat is going to say something stupid, and we will have it here, taped and in a loop on Politics in the Pulpit for you to listen to. Folks, we just want you normal people out there to feel sorry for when a man dies or a woman dies and leaves behind a wife and a husband and kids. Can't we just have a corporate humanity for 1 minute? This is Pastor Cook saying thanks for tuning in to Politics in the Pulpit. Get out there and look for leozacky.com, and we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel here on your hometown station.